How do you choose the perfect operating system when building out your virtual environment? Welcome to the deep dive.
Hey there.
Today, we're really plunging into one of the most crucial decisions for anyone working with Proxmox, and that's selecting the right Linux distribution for your virtual machines and your containers.
Yeah, it sounds basic, but it's surprisingly tricky.
It really is. You see, with Proxmox VE, which is, a seriously powerful open source hypervisor for VMs and LXC containers, the actual efficiency, the reliability, and frankly, the ease of maintenance for your whole setup.
Yeah.
A lot of that often comes down to what OS you choose to run inside those virtualized spaces.
That's absolutely right. And what truly stands out here is, well, while there's no single, universally best answer that fits every single scenario.
Right, no silver bullet.
Exactly. But the Proxmox community, which is super active, is just buzzing with strong opinions. And you can definitely see clear patterns emerging for what leads to success. We're talking about a really wide spectrum of options here. Everything from incredibly featherlight setups like Alpine Linux, really designed for speed, all the way to rock-solid enterprise-grade choices like Rocky Linux.
And you even mentioned some non-Linux curveballs.
Yeah, and even some fascinating non-Linux options like FreeBSD that have their own unique strengths. There's a lot to consider.
Absolutely. So our mission today is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We want to help you navigate these diverse choices. We want to show you not just what each distro offers, but maybe more importantly, why those characteristics matter for different goals you might have.
Right, the context is key.
Exactly. Whether you're setting up, say, a simple Nextcloud server in your Homelab, or maybe you're diving into a complex media server that needs GPU pass-through.
Ooh, fun stuff.
Yeah, or even managing a sprawling enterprise cluster. Your distro choice can profoundly impact your whole experience. It's really about building a robust foundation that's tailored precisely to what you need rather than just, picking the first thing you find.
It really, really does. I mean, the distro choice isn't just some minor detail in your overall Proxmox strategy. It's pretty fundamental.
Okay.
Think about it. The OS you pick directly impacts, say, the snappy response times you want, right?
Yeah.
Or the long-term stability your critical services absolutely demand.
Yeah, uptime matters.
Totally. And it even affects how smoothly you handle routine stuff like security updates and package control. It kind of dictates how well specialized features like advanced networking or that hardware path where you mentioned actually integrate.
Interesting.
And like you said, the Proxmox crowd, they have very strong, often passionately defended opinions on what truly works best in real-world scenarios. It just reflects how deeply this decision influences the entire life cycle of your virtualized infrastructure.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If you're building a house, right, you start with a strong foundation.
Good analogy.
In the Proxmox world, that foundation, well, it often points directly to what many people call the quiet workhorse, maybe the undisputed gold standard.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Debian. It just seems to pop up constantly as the default choice in, almost every discussion.
Yeah, a compelling observation here is just how consistently Debian does emerge as the community's default. It's lauded for being incredibly fast, inherently minimal out of the box, and just absurdly stable.
Absurdly stable, I like that.
It really is. One user perfectly captured its essence. They just said, Debian. Simple, stable, fast, reliable.
Can't argue with that.
That simple phrase really distills its core charm, doesn't it? Debian's whole philosophy is about meticulous testing and a slower, very deliberate release cycle. And that's not a bug. It's like a fundamental feature.
Right. Stability over bleeding edge.
Precisely. It means the software you get is incredibly battle-hardened, minimizing those unexpected interactions or, breaking changes that can ruin your weekend.
Definitely.
For a Proxmox environment, this translates directly to fewer late-night troubleshooting sessions and a truly set-it-and-forget-it experience for your base VMs and containers. You get predictability, which is just gold in virtualization.
And it's package management with apt that often gets praised as, a dream, right? People say it doesn't bloat things up. Even if the first optional package you install pulls in a ton of dependencies, it still manages things cleanly.
Exactly. The apt package manager is just mature. It handles dependencies smoothly, efficiently. It's reliable, and generally just works without fuss.
Good.
And a common tip from the community, maybe a crucial one actually, that saves countless hours of troubleshooting later is to always run apt update and apt upgrade right after installing. Just get it done.
Good practice.
Yeah, it ensures all your packages are totally up to date from the get-go. And currently, Debian 12, which is codenamed Bookworm, that's the widely recommended version as we're heading through mid-2025.
Right. Now, what's particularly compelling, I think, is how Proxmox itself is built on Debian.
Yes.
That has to lead to some pretty tight integrations, right?
Yeah.
Fewer weird edge cases, just overall better compatibility. Feels like a really natural synergy.
It absolutely does. That close foundational relationship is a major reason for its, frankly, unparalleled reliability within a Proxmox setup.
Okay.
There's a great real-world example. A user managing a container image, get this, with nearly 1 million downloads,
Wow.
told us they stick with Debian precisely because, and I'm quoting here, it just doesn't break things.
That says it all, really.
It really does. That kind of rock-solid dependability is just invaluable. Plus, another point for those who are maybe a bit wary of Red Hat's systemed push.
Yes, the init system debate.
Exactly. That's their, pervasive init system that manages tons of background processes and services. Debian actually offers a remarkable degree of flexibility there.
How so?
Well, you can, if you choose to, opt for alternatives like OpenRC, which is a simpler, more traditional process management system. And that choice, it scores Debian extra points with a lot of users who appreciate maybe the philosophical stance against systems' extensive reach.
Interesting. Okay, so if Debian represents that rock-solid, maybe slightly conservative foundation, then Ubuntu often feels like the familiar, versatile choice for a lot of Linux users, right?
Definitely.
Despite some of its, let's say, controversies, it definitely has a loyal fan base in the Proxmox world, too. What do you think drives that continued popularity?
Yeah, it's a good point. This begs the question, why is Ubuntu still so widely adopted, despite some of those debates you mentioned? Well, it's Ubuntu Server LTS that's long-term support versions. In particular, they're really favored.
Why is that?
Mostly due to massive community support. There's just a huge ecosystem of tutorials, guides, forums, plus extremely wide software and hardware compatibility.
Right.
We had one user actually tell us they use Ubuntu everything, their words, and they specifically praised its network configuration tool, NetPlan, over Debian's more traditional network handling. They found it more intuitive, more powerful.
Interesting. NetPlan.
Yeah. And they also found Ubuntu to be incredibly reliable for, well, everything from self-hosting Plex media servers and Docker container environments to just robust file servers.
But then there's the elephant in the room, or maybe the snap in the room. That often comes up in discussions, right? Canonical's snap ecosystem.
Yep.
I've definitely heard that's a deal breaker for some users, almost like a philosophical line in the sand.
You're absolutely right. The Snap ecosystem is indeed a significant deal breaker for some within the Proxmox community. We had one user openly call them clunky and out of sync with traditional Linux workflows.
Ouch.
Yeah. They often cite concerns about performance, resource usage, maybe integration issues. However,
There's always a however.
always, Ubuntu also brings some crucial wins to the table. Sometimes when specific hardware issues pop up, like tricky GPU pass-through problems that maybe you might hit on Debian, perhaps due to newer hardware or specific driver needs.
Right, the bleeding edge hardware.
Exactly. Ubuntu sometimes comes to the rescue there. Its, let's say, more aggressive pace of driver updates can occasionally sort out those edge case driver support issues much more quickly.
So a real-world win for hardware compatibility sometimes. That's good to know. Plus, for many people, it's just about muscle memory.
Totally. Familiarity is huge.
If you've been using Ubuntu on your desktop or servers for years, it's just a cozy, familiar choice, isn't it? Especially with those long-term support builds, like the current Ubuntu server 24.04 LTS, offering a solid, well-supported experience for years. That familiarity can be a huge productivity booster.
No doubt about it. Don't underestimate the power of what you know.
Okay, shifting gears now. What about those situations where every single megabyte, every CPU cycle counts?
Resource efficiency.
Yeah, where you're really trying to squeeze every last bit of performance out of your hardware, especially maybe for containers. That's where we pivot to Alpine Linux, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's its core appeal when we talk about resource efficiency?
Yeah, zooming out a bit, Alpine Linux is just a prime example of optimizing for minimal overhead. It's an incredibly lightweight beast.
How lightweight are we talking?
We're talking a ridiculously small footprint. It's exceptionally fast, incredibly efficient. This makes it absolutely ideal for LXC containers where you want virtually zero bloat. Imagine a full OS taking up just mere megabytes, not gigabytes.
Wow, megabytes. That sounds perfect for really niche-focused tasks then.
Yeah.
I've heard users rave about its efficiency for, Like hosting Docker containers with almost no overhead? Or running super lightweight single-purpose services like maybe an AdGuard Home DNS server?
Yeah,
Getting impressive performance even on systems with really tight resources.
absolutely. That's the sweet spot. One user's approach was quite telling, actually. They said they start with Alpine, only switching to Debian if they hit issues.
Okay, so default lean.
Right. It highlights its role as the go-to for lean projects. However, there's always a however.
Knew it was coming.
There's a crucial rub that users really need to be aware of. Alpine uses muscle lib.
Muscle lib. Okay, what's the implication there?
Instead of the more widely used glib, think of these like different foundational building blocks for software, different standard libraries.
Gotcha.
Many applications, especially those compiled without Alpine specifically in mind, inherently expect glib to be there. This is particularly important for compiled languages like Go, for instance, where developers might unknowingly rely on specific glib functions.
So what happens?
Well, failing to account for this can lead to really cryptic, odd failures, or sometimes even just outright crashes if your application isn't explicitly compiled for muscle.
Ah, okay. So potential compatibility headaches if you're not careful.
Exactly. So while Alpine is awesome for its efficiency and its security model, it's really crucial to understand what you're deploying and what its dependencies are just to avoid those unexpected, frustrating issues. Know your app's needs.
Good advice. Okay, let's pivot again maybe towards the enterprise side of things. After Red Hat made those significant changes to CentOS 8 a while back, shifting its focus.
Yeah, that caused quite a stir.
It really did. The community really needed a strong, reliable alternative for production environment, didn't they? And that's where Rocky Linux stepped in, seems like.
Yeah, this begs the question. How did the community collectively respond to those CentOS changes, and why has Rocky Linux risen to such prominence so quickly? Well, Rocky Linux emerged basically as a spiritual successor. It was meticulously built to be a 1.1 binary compatible clone of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or RHEL, especially now with the newer Rocky 10 version.
One-to-one compatible, that's key.
Absolutely key. It's designed from the ground up for enterprise use, and we're seeing a significant number of Proxmox users who absolutely swear by it for their mission-critical VMs.
Really?
Oh yeah. One user noted their entire shop is all Rocky, and the reason? Its impressive decade-long support window for each major release.
10 years, wow.
Yeah, that's a monumental win for stability, for planning, for compliance, especially in a business environment.
Makes sense. So for anyone coming from a Red Hat background, like people familiar with CentOS already, or maybe RHEL itself,
Yeah.
it's a pretty smooth transition then. Same tooling, similar feel.
Exactly. It lowers the barrier to entry for enterprise adoption significantly. It makes that transition seamless. It preserves all that muscle memory, existing automation scripts.
Right.
You get the robust stability and the familiar tools of a RHEL-based system, but crucially, without the associated subscription costs that come with RHEL itself.
Okay, the cost factor is big. Is there any potential downside or concern?
Well, there is a potential concern among some users.
Yeah.
They worry that as Rocky Linux evolves, maybe it might diverge from RHEL in subtle ways over time, ways that could perhaps cause little hiccups down the line, especially with Red Hat putting out rapid updates sometimes.
The drift potential.
Exactly. Time will tell on that front, for sure. But right now, for enterprise-grade long-term support, for that RHEL-style experience without needing direct subscriptions, and for full compatibility with familiar Red Hat tools.
Yeah.
Which makes it perfect for integrating into existing IT infrastructures, especially in maybe larger Proxmox clusters. Rocky Linux is an undeniably solid, very serious option.
Okay, solid enterprise choice. Now, for something completely different, as they say.
Uh-oh, where are we going now?
We've talked about a lot of Linux distros, but there's this fascinating wildcard that some of the more adventurous Proxmox users really rave about. FreeBSD.
Yes, FreeBSD. This raises a really important question, actually. What unique advantages does a non-Linux operating system bring to a Proxmox environment?
Good question.
Because it's crucial to understand, FreeBSD is not Linux. It's its own distinct operating system, developed totally independently, different kernel, different user land, built from the ground up on the BSD lineage.
Right, different family tree altogether.
Completely. But its adopters,
Yeah.
particularly those using its jails for containerization.
Jails, right.
Yeah, think of them as lightweight, native virtual environments built right into FreeBSD, offering really strong isolation. They find it incredibly powerful and resilient. One fan vividly described it as simple, stable, lean, robust, really emphasizing its focused, very UNX-like design.
And doesn't it come with some really compelling, powerful features kind of built in, things that Linux users might have to add on or configure separately?
It absolutely does. Okay, first off, it has built-in first-class ZFS support.
Ah, ZFS. Proxmox loves ZFS too.
Exactly, which Proxmox itself also favors for its advanced data integrity and management features, so that's a natural fit. Its jails, as we mentioned, are rock solid for containerization, offering a very different philosophical approach to isolation compared to, say, Docker or LXC on Linux.
Interesting.
Moreover, it offers 3 different built-in firewalls. 3. With PF, packet filter, being a particular standout for many, praised for its elegant syntax and really powerful capabilities, especially in complex networking scenarios.
3 firewalls.
Yeah. There's also a very clean, very intentional separation between the base OS and third-party packages, which really contributes to its stability and predictability over time.
Okay, sounds powerful, but maybe not for beginners.
Definitely not a beginner's playground. It requires a bit more of a deep dive into its unique philosophy and tools. But it's incredibly powerful and efficient if you know your way around it.
Any other perks?
Oh yeah, one advanced perk, especially for those who prioritize flexibility and resilience during updates. It offers something called boot environment.
Boot environments.
Yeah, they let you snapshot your system for an update and then easily roll back system changes if something goes wrong. It makes upgrades far less nerve-wracking.
Okay, that's a killer feature for stability.
Yeah.
FreeBSD, the powerful wildcard. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, beyond these big names and that intriguing wildcard we've covered, what else is lurking out there for the truly niche or maybe the power user crowd who just love to push boundaries?
Right, the honorable mentions. This really shows the incredible diversity and just the sheer innovation happening within the broader open source ecosystem. It proves there's a specific tool for nearly every specific job if you look hard enough.
Okay, like what?
All right, let's start with Fedora, often seen as, Red Hat's upstream testing ground.
The bleeding edge.
Exactly. But its Atomic and IoT variants are actually gaining fans in the Proxmox world, especially for running rootless Podman containers.
Rootless?
Yeah, containers that don't require root privileges, which is a nice security enhancement. And also just for folks who demand the absolute latest features and packages, maybe for development or testing.
That makes sense for experimental setups.
Mm-hmm.
What about for those who prize, like ultimate control and maybe minimalism taken to an extreme?
Well, for the ultimate DIY enthusiast, there's Arch Linux. Now, surprisingly, for experienced users who really understand its rolling release model.
Yeah, rolling can sound scary.
It can, but they claim it's incredibly stable if managed properly. We actually heard from one user who claimed 80% of their VMs run Arch and have done so for over 10 years without major issues.
10 years on Arch. That's impressive.
It speaks to its robust design, in the right hands. Then you have NixOS, which is a fascinating beast altogether.
NixOS, I've heard of that. Declarative configuration.
Exactly. It appeals deeply to those who love declarative configuration and really fine-grained control. With NixOS, your entire system, from the kernel right up to your applications, is defined in a configuration file.
So reproducible builds.
Perfectly reproducible and easily rollback friendly. That's a huge benefit for managing complex Proxmox environments. Think infrastructure as code for the whole OS.
Wow. Okay. That sounds like a dream for automation fans.
Yeah.
Any other super specialized contenders out there?
Absolutely. For the serious Kubernetes and container orchestration geeks, there's Talos.
Talos.
Yeah, it's a super minimal, immutable, and purpose-built operating system focused solely and entirely on running Kubernetes clusters. It's incredibly secure and efficient if you're deploying large-scale container clusters on Proxmox.
Okay, laser focused on K8s.
Totally. And finally, just to round it out, if you're looking for another RHEL clone, another alternative in that space, Alma Linux is often mentioned alongside Rocky Linux as a strong contender, offering a very similar enterprise-grade experience.
Got it. Alma Linux.
So yeah, these honorable mentions, they aren't for everyone, right? They typically demand a higher level of expertise or they serve very specific niche needs that they happen to excel at.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who love to experiment or if you have precise technical requirements, they are definitely worth checking out and knowing about.
Okay, great overview of the wider landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So as we kind of look around at this landscape in mid-2025, after exploring all these options, what's the summary? What's really hot right now? What overarching patterns are emerging?
Yeah, if we try to connect all these threads, sort of zoom out to the bigger picture, I think we're seeing maybe 2 dominant philosophies really emerge.
Okay.
On one hand, there's this continued, maybe even strengthened reliance on that boring is good stability you get from Debian, especially for foundational services and general purpose VMs.
A workhorse.
The workhorse. Its simplicity, combined with Proxmox's own Debian roots, just makes it an almost unbeatable choice for dependable, low-maintenance infrastructure. It
Right.
just works.
What's the other philosophy?
On the other hand, we're seeing a really strong pull towards hyper-specialized minimalist systems. Think Alpine, think Talos, for specific containerized workloads where every single byte and millisecond counts and where, rapid deployment and absolute resource efficiency are the top priorities.
Makes sense. What about the others?
Well, Rocky 10 is clearly cementing its place as the go-to enterprise standard for those seeking that RHEL-style experience, but without the direct subscription. It offers that rock-solid long-term support crucial for business-critical apps.
Okay. And FreeBSD.
And the continued, almost cult-like fascination with FreeBSD just reminds us that sometimes the most robust and unique solutions actually live entirely outside the traditional Linux family tree. It offers powerful, purpose-built tools for specific high-performance or security-focused needs.
Fascinating trends. Okay, so what's the final takeaway then? After diving into all these excellent options, how should you, our listener, approach picking the right distro for your Proxmox VMs and containers? What's the guiding principle here?
Yeah, this really raises the most important question for you, the listener. What are your specific goals? And just as importantly, what are your comfort levels? What's your existing expertise? Because honestly, the best choice depends entirely on what you're trying to achieve and, frankly, how much you're willing to learn or tinker.
Right, it's personal.
Totally. So, quick guide maybe. If you're looking for just unparalleled stability, maximum compatibility out of the box, and a true set-it-and-forget-it experience, Debian is probably your go-to.
Okay.
If you prefer extensive community support, maybe a friendlier learning curve, and access to more modern features and drivers, Ubuntu LTS is a really solid and versatile choice. For absolutely minimal resource consumption, especially for those lightweight containers, Alpine is incredibly effective, provided you understand and check for those muscle libly quirks we talked about.
Right. The caveat.
The caveat. For business environments, or if you need that decade-long support and a familiar Red Hat-style experience, Rocky Linux is your answer.
Enterprise. Rocky.
Pretty much. And if you're really up for a robust adventure outside the traditional Linux bubble, maybe exploring powerful features like ZFS and jails in their native environment, then give FreeBSD a serious look.
I love that summary. It really embodies the core philosophy of Proxmox and open source in general, doesn't it? Which is all about flexibility and empowerment. As the one user put it so perfectly, I run what I need to run or want to run. It's about choosing the right tool for your specific job.
Exactly. And with Proxmox, you have this incredible flexibility baked right in. The flexibility to experiment, to build, maybe to break things sometimes.
Learn by breaking.
Yeah, learn from those breaks and then rebuild even better. There's truly no single wrong answer here. Just different, equally valid paths to achieving a clean, fast, and reliable virtualized system that's tailored precisely to your unique needs and preference.
What an incredible range of choices, all really designed to help you build a perfect environment for your needs, whether you're a seasoned sysadmin or just starting out on your Proxmox journey.
Absolutely. This deep dive really highlights that in the world of Proxmox, your toolkit is just as vast and diverse as your imagination. It allows for incredible customization and optimization if you're willing to explore.
So here's a final thought for you to mull over. As you consider your next Proxmox project, think not just about which distro perfectly fits your immediate task, but also maybe think about which one challenges you to learn something new. Maybe challenges you to break a system just to understand its mechanics better and truly master the art of infrastructure building. What will your next experiment be?